Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show. It's Tuesday, October 25th, 2016. As you can tell by my voice, I'm still fighting this lingering cold here that's just, the malady lingers on. What can I tell you? And so I sound like a basso profundo today. And 6 hours of radio yesterday didn't help either that. So bear with me, and I'll probably back off and let the callers talk a little bit more and take some of the workload off here. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, ready to answer the phone when you call on in. And as usual, we're going to start with the current political campaign, or the illusion of democracy. And we're seeing all these articles like this one: the election is being rigged by the media, which is doing everything it can to suppress bad news about Hillary and maximize it about Trump. And they're starting to run in circles like a chicken with its head cut off, which you don't understand unless you've been a farm kid like me. But the reality is they're shredding their own credibility, and everybody knows it. So we're seeing this article out here in RINF.com. Can you really trust establishment-controlled election polls? No, of course you can't. We have caught them time and time again, skewing the results with oversampling, of deliberately targeting people they know are going to give them the answer they want. Oh, yes, Hillary Clinton is way ahead. And there's still out there. And remember, there was that email that came out of Podesta's little trove, as it were, that there was a strategy to rig the media polls to show Hillary winning, to discourage Donald Trump supporters and get him to basically just stay home on Election Day. So don't fall for it. Don't be a sucker. Now, if you look at how the polls are really all over the place, most of them are going to turn out to be dead wrong anyway. Now, somebody brought up this issue. This is over at theobserver.com, saying that one of the big problems we have in the United States is that reporters caught colluding with politicians and propagandizing the people, nothing happens to them. The only thing that will get a reporter fired, in fact, is refusing to lie on command from management. That came out of the Fox News synthetic bovine growth hormone lawsuit. And so we have all of this documentary evidence that surfaced out of the Podesta emails and WikiLeaks and DNC emails about how the American corporate media is fully on board the Hillary Clinton campaign. They are part of her campaign. And so you shouldn't be paying attention to anything they have to say. And according to more recent polls, 94% of Americans aren't paying attention to what the corporate media has to say. And that's a good thing. Remember, at one point, Podesta had this secret off-the-record dinner with 65 leading members of the corporate media and Hillary Clinton's election team to coordinate how they were going to convince you to vote for Hillary Clinton. The corporate media is still out there trying to prove that they can get you to do what the elites want you to do. Vote for a particular corrupt candidate, agree to a new tax, believe in human-caused global warming, send your children off to be killed and crippled in wars. That's what the media does. That's why they get the big bucks, to control your mind. And all mind control is controlling what you know, so that you will, of your own free will, come to the conclusion that's been engineered for you. That's what propaganda and mind control does. There are no strange rays, there's no drugs in the water, none of that ridiculous stuff. You control the mind by controlling what it knows, and that's what the corporate media does. They'll give you that information that will lead you to say, we have no choice but to go and do whatever it is they want you to do. And that's what's happening right now. And there is a pushback. And part of the problem, you think they would have learned from the deplorables remark that this elitist, dismissive attitude to anybody not going along with Hillary was going to backflash. And so lately we have been seeing the corporate media go back to this idea of declaring that anybody who supports Donald Trump, they're angry white males, or they're uneducated, or unenlightened, or whatever it is they want to say. They're trying to make you think, oh, I don't want to be a Trump supporter because then I'm all these negative things. If you're a Hillary supporter, you are a saint. You are an angel incarnate. You are obviously part of the elite, and you are smarter than everybody else. If you vote for Hillary, you're smarter than the average bear. And it's a rather crude branding, but it is backfiring because everybody understands that's exactly what they're doing. Now, let me show you about the bias in the media. There is an article in the Washington Post titled, "How Angry Does Donald Trump Make Me? Angry Enough to Steal 40 Trump Signs." And it's about this woman saying she's so offended that Donald Trump said the P word that she and her friends went down the street in her neighborhood and they stole 40 Donald Trump signs. Now, this is a Hillary Clinton supporter committing crimes. It is a crime to tamper with people's campaign signs. It's a violation of the civil rights. It's theft. It's trespassing. It's destruction of property that doesn't belong to you. This woman should be in jail. What does the Washington Post do? Hold her up as a hero. She's a hero because she's stealing Donald Trump signs and destroying them. We're going to take a break here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just rejoining the network. We're starting our show, as usual, with the campaign news here, and this absurd article in the Washington Post where they're trying to make a hero out of a woman who's admitting she's stolen 40 Donald Trump signs, which is illegal. This lady should be in jail, not lionized by the corporate media. But that's what the media's job is to do. Anybody supporting Hillary is good. Anything they do to support Hillary is good. Anybody who's supporting Donald Trump is bad, and anything done to support Donald Trump is bad. That's the world they're trying to create. Now, we're seeing more and more indications that Hillary Clinton's rallies are almost completely staged. And there was an interesting video that came on out from Hillary's rally in Cleveland, where they wanted to shoot a new campaign commercial for Hillary Clinton in front of the rather small crowd that was there. And what was interesting is they were just kind of sitting there like they were bored. They literally had to have people come on out and say, come on, you got to be excited. You love Hillary. You wave those signs, and literally goad them on. Because the enthusiasm just wasn't really there. It was a bunch of extras. They probably put a casting call in the local newspapers and said, come on down, be an extra in a commercial. And we have caught politicians doing that before. Craigslist, Backstage Magazine. We've seen ads where politicians are literally trying to hire audiences. And there was a story that came out, well, actually it's a YouTube video, where somebody caught Hillary Clinton's motorcade coming into one of her rallies, and it had buses of audience with them. People didn't just show up on their own. They bussed an audience in, bought and paid for. Come sit and listen to Hillary, you get a box of lunch. Now, MSNBC, pardon me, went up to interview Hillary's childhood, or basically show Hillary's childhood neighborhood in Pennsylvania, and were met with a cloud of signs for Donald Trump, some for Jill Stein, none for Hillary Clinton. Over the weekend, we had a Donald Trump sign waving down in Honolulu, right there in front of Iolani Palace, right there in front of the old Royal Courthouse. Almost 70 people looking at the photo. And to date, I've still only seen this one lady with a Hillary Clinton sign. She's down here at the bottom of the hill on Moanalua, wagging it at people, almost hitting their windshields. She's going to get run over if she's not careful, which is okay, because even if she's killed, I'm certain she's going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Now, Tim Kaine held a rally, and only 30 showed up. That's including the corporate media journalists, Tim Kaine's own staff, and the Secret Service protective detail, and they still only had 30 people. On the same day, Trump had a rally that drew 20,000 people. And obviously people are talking about this. What we're seeing with our own eyes at these rallies doesn't match up with the corporate media's claims of polls showing Hillary slightly ahead. And now the media is feeling they have to deal with that. There was actually this story on Fox News. Why aren't the polls reflecting this disparity in turnout at the rallies? And it was kind of fun watching these talking heads going on and on and on about how it is so strange, we just don't understand. And I guess it's because Trump's supporters are enthusiastic enough to show up at the rallies, but people who are voting for Hillary, they figure it's a done deal, so they're just staying at home. And they're just trying to come up with any kind of an excuse so that you will stop judging the situation with your own eyes and your own brain and go back to just believing whatever the corporate media tells you. Now, there's a very simple explanation for why the rallies are so different in terms of attendance and the polls so close. It's because dead people can vote in this election, but they can't show up at the rallies. That's what's going on here. Now, over at CNN, Anderson Cooper has broken ranks to talk about the Project Veritas videos and saying that they are damning. 3 of them are now out, more are on the way, and what has been caught in them is damaging not only to the Hillary campaign, it's damaging to the corporate media. It shows Hillary Clinton engaging in criminal behavior against the Donald Trump campaign, and Trump has now filed lawsuit against Hillary to recover the costs incurred in dealing with her hired thugs. Now, more documents are coming out of WikiLeaks, and they show that there has been a tremendous panic around Hillary Clinton's campaign, trying to keep her as far away from Trey Gowdy as they can. Because Trey Gowdy is just absolutely incensed. He knows she committed crimes. He's being blocked by the head of the FBI. He's being blocked by the Attorney General. He's being blocked by President Obama, and he is furious. And as I understand it, he is on the top of a very, very short list to be Donald Trump's Attorney General. And I certainly hope he gets that. Now, Hillary's people are out there saying that the FBI cleared her of all charges in the email incident. No, they did not. She is not cleared. She is not exonerated. The head of the FBI said she's committed these felony violations of Title 18, but we're not going to recommend charges. That doesn't get her off the hook. If Trump overcomes the election fraud and becomes president, and Trey Gowdy is his Attorney General, they can bring those charges to bear on Hillary and everybody who helped her. We'll be talking a little bit more about that later in the show. Now, the new batch of emails that came on out yesterday has revealed a new thread with a code phrase in it, headspace. Now, we all know colloquially headspace is how are you feeling, but it takes on a more interesting import, if you will, because it's how they talk about how Hillary is dealing with the world on a particular day. How bad is her head? Is she able to function? Basically is the implication here. Remember, Huma Abedin in one of the other emails came on out and said, Hillary Clinton gets very confused. She has to have her hand held, metaphorically, when dealing with foreign leaders. And there's more confirmation that Hillary is great at memorizing speeches. She's great at reading teleprompters. She cannot think on her feet. And thinking on or off your feet is the job of the president. So, needless to say, as all these states start cranking up with the early voting, which is where Hillary is really hoping to do most of the stealing, we're already getting reports all across the country of what are being termed voting irregularities by the corporate media. It's not fraud, it's not theft, it's just an irregularity, it's a glitch, it's a sticky thing, really you shouldn't pay attention to it. So down in Texas, already in at least 2 cities, and I'm starting to get word of a third, people who are going in there on those electronic voting machines and voting the straight Republican ticket are seeing their vote for president switch to Hillary Clinton. People are getting this on their cell phone videos and posting them to Twitter. There is no question this is actually happening. And everybody that it does happen to, you complain. You say this needs to be fixed. And you get the names of the election workers that you are talking with, so if they don't fix it, you can publicly shame them. So over in Amarillo, they were saying votes were changing on the ballot. And the election officials, in particular Potter County Judge Nancy Tanner, and yes, she's a Democrat, released a statement saying, there is nothing wrong with any of the machines we use for voting. They do not flip your vote. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a mistake. People are just not using the technology. Like I said, people have this on video. They're taking their cell phone cameras, they're pushing the Republican button, and the Democratic vote lights up. And they're already out there trying to say, well, okay, there's some irregularities, but nowhere near enough to change the outcome of the election. That's one of the excuses they use. Our machines are perfect. These are just mistakes made by Americans who are too stupid to use the electronic voting machines, blah, 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 blah. Up in Philadelphia, NBC 10 is actually out there saying there are huge numbers of non-citizens on the voter rolls in Philadelphia. They actually went on out and interviewed one of them, and they asked him, do you understand you're not allowed to vote in this country? And he said, no, he was told by campaign workers that, yes, he was allowed to vote, that it was okay for him to vote, and he's been voting. It's just really out of control here. All right, let's take some phone calls. Dan in Canada, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Mike. I was listening to Fox News on XM radio in the car yesterday, and they cut to Hillary's New Hampshire rally. And whenever she said something that the crowd wanted to cheer about, you could hear the crowd cheer, but it was... compared to Trump's audience, it was just like you could almost hear crickets in the background. So I went to YouTube. They had a live stream when I got home, and they wouldn't pan out from the crowd, and it just seemed like a really, really small crowd.
You know, anybody who's an audio engineer, if you listen closely, you can see they're adding cheers to Hillary's speeches. They've got a cheer track, like a laugh track, where you add cheering in. And you can tell because it fades up and then fades down. It doesn't just start and stop the way real people cheering does. And
another thing, on this YouTube live stream, they disabled the comments, but the thumbs down were like 350 to like 100 votes up.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, if she's so ahead, if she's 6 points ahead in the polls, then, why is Obama going out and electioneering for her in Florida for an entire week? Like, doesn't he have a job to do?
Yes, he does, and as a matter of fact, with his use of Air Force One, he's actually in violation of federal law that says you may not use government assets for political campaigning. But these people don't believe in following the rules anymore. The laws are just for you little people. And at this point, they're wholly committed to getting Hillary into the White House, and they figure once she's there, Obama will just pardon everything that happened, or Hillary will pardon it all. And so they're just going to break any laws they feel they need to break.
Exactly. Anyways, I'll let you go, but I just wanted to remind the listeners to help Mike Rivero and Claire do what they do, and jump onto PayPal and give them $5 or $10. All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for the kind word. Yeah, especially in this final push to the election, every little bit helps, because about a month ago, I stopped accepting new advertisers to the website, specifically the advertisers where there's a script. I'm still going with the image hyperlink ads, but the other ones, there have been so many problems with malware and people trying to wreck our readers' machines, we just cut them off and said no more until after the election. All right, let's see. Philip in Krakow, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Josh, Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. What can I do for you? I'm probably going to have to take you through this next commercial break, but let's get started now.
I was curious, really, being an outsider to your wonderful country. With the MSM, the mainstream media, blatantly lying to the people of America, are there at risk, these so-called journalists and presenters, of the same fate that William Joyce, Lord Haw-Haw, faced at the end of the Second World War?
No, because Lord Haw-Haw and Tokyo Rose were propagandizing on behalf of an enemy, and our corporate media, I don't even call them the mainstream anymore, because the mainstream has now moved over here.
I understand that.
The corporate media is hand in glove with the government, so they will never be prosecuted. for anything that they do. In fact, the only thing that they can lose their job over is refusing to lie when ordered to do so. Stay on the line, Philip. We're going to come back for you as soon as these commercials are over. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Philip in Krakow. And what was the next thing you wanted to share with us?
Well, I would just go back to the original point and compare them to enemy operatives. They're certainly not working for the American people.
No, but they're working for the corporations and the government, and that's what they've been doing at least since the end of World War II, when the CIA started their Operation Mockingbird to turn the corporate media into a propaganda machine that was modeled after the one used by the Nazis.
This I agree with, and wasn't there an executive order that permitted propaganda to be used internally in America?
Well, actually, no. They literally repealed the law. There had been a law saying that the U.S. government could not use propaganda against the American people, but about 2 years ago, Congress voted to repeal that very quietly. And they're basically admitting, we're lying to you. If you're a loyal American, you will believe the bovine excrement.
It's horrible to see. Now, I've got a question for my mum. My 90-year-old mum has got a question.
Okay.
When I list the crimes committed by Crooked Hillary, she says, well, Philip, why doesn't somebody arrest her? And her question is, why? Who is there? And I say, well, who is there? So I'm asking her, who could arrest Hillary Clinton, albeit there is no desire to do so?
Well, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, both Clintons could have and should have been arrested by the law enforcement machinery of this country long, long ago. But Bill and Hillary Clinton are tied in at the deepest levels of this narcocracy, which is the CIA's cocaine and gun-running empire. They know where all the dead bodies are buried and how they got to be dead bodies. They're literally in a position of being able to blackmail and or terrorize the entire government. Nobody's got the courage to stand up and try and arrest them. Everybody who stands up to the Clintons winds up dead, or at least their career destroyed. Now, in a nation of laws, they would have been arrested and jailed a long time ago, but we're not a nation of laws anymore. We're a dictatorship, and in the typical pattern, no matter what the dictator does, they are above the law, and that's exactly how Hillary Clinton sees herself, as above the law.
This is what I tell my mother. She's just absolutely shocked. She compares it to 1984, in which she was in the first original film. She was an extra in it.
Oh, really?
And she, I'm film industry.
The one with John Hurt.
No, before that, 1954.
Oh my goodness.
1954, 1955. Made at Denham Studios.
Yeah, I remember the Denham Studios. Well,
she was walking around in denim jeans and T-shirts. And she said we were sitting there at lunch talking, this could never happen. What a load of rubbish this is, but we'll take the paycheck at the end of the day. But now she turns around and she said, I don't believe it. I'm seeing it. Everything I would thought was impossible, when I was on that set, is now in reality.
Well, George Orwell actually wrote the book as a warning. And obviously knew what he was speaking of. Anyway, give your mom a hug from me, one film artist to another film artist, and
indeed.
And I'm glad she's listening to the show.
Indeed. But just one quick shout out to John in the Bahamas. I have this lovely mental image of him sitting in his hurricane bunker down there, being fed cocktails by bikini-clad beauties.
Well, he's not in the Bahamas. He's in Barbados.
Barbados.
Little further south. Further south. It is a beautiful island. It is a beautiful island. And great rum on that island.
Yes, indeed.
All right, Philip, we're going to
Thanks very much indeed. You have a good day. Keep up the great work.
Thank you very much. We will do that. Let's switch over to Bob in Las Vegas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I actually happen to agree with the previous caller from Poland, comparing our leaders today with Lord Hee-Haw and Tokyo Jane. I mean, they're basically whoring for the globalists in Israel. So what's the difference?
Well, again, it's a legal distinction only that Tokyo Rose and Lord Ha-Ha were broadcasting propaganda on behalf of the enemies of our countries, as opposed to the corporate media, which is broadcasting propaganda on behalf of our government against the ordinary people. Bob, we're going to put you on hold. Got to take a break for commercials. Okay. We'll come back to you after these words from our sponsors. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going back to Bob in Las Vegas. Bob, take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Professor. As I think one of your callers called you yesterday.
Yes.
Couple items I wanted to discuss. First, Trey Gowdy, I'm a big fan of his. I'd love to see him as Attorney General.
Me too.
But whatever happened with the investigation of the IRS and their targeting of liberty groups? I think he and Jason Chavich were leading this investigation. It seemed like nothing came of it.
Well, that's because all of the evidence was on Lois Lerner's hard drive, and golly gee shuckies, it was destroyed and there were no backups, so there was no evidence for them to work with. Believe it or not, back in 1995, when Congress was trying to investigate the Chinagate scandal, the Clinton White House did exactly the same thing. There was something like 3 million documents under subpoena, and oh my goodness, our email server just crashed and somebody turned off the backup system 2 weeks before. So we just didn't have any of that stuff anymore.
Wow. Okay. I want to get on this subject. There's been a lot of talk about revolutions, especially if the election is seen to be stolen. But I want to ask you, do any spontaneous revolutions happen anymore? I mean, you look at the example of what happened. It seems like they're all incited or manipulated from the outside. Like, for example, Ukraine. The situation in Ukraine now is worse than it was pre-Maidan. So why aren't we seeing a revolution in Ukraine today?
Well, we are. That's what's going on over in the eastern Ukrainian republics with the Donbass and those areas. They're breaking. That's what we saw in Crimea.
Oh, no. I'm talking about in western Ukraine, where Kiev, where things are worse now. The economy is worse now than it was before the Maidan protests. But why aren't the people in western Ukraine rising up against the Kiev, the quote-unquote legitimate government, the Poroshenko government in Kiev?
Well, for one reason, unlike the United States of America, the Ukrainian people do not have a recognized right to keep and bear arms. So they are functionally slaves. And that's, of course, the whole point of disarming the population is to reduce them to slavery, so they will do as they're told to do. And that's what's going on in Ukraine, and that's what Hillary wants to do if she steals the White House. She's out there giving military weapons to ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria, to Mexican drug cartels, but by golly, you law-abiding American citizens have to be disarmed so that you will do what Hillary tells you to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I guess what I'm saying is when Yanukovych was the president in Kiev, then these protests suddenly rose up.
Yeah, but that was all manufactured.
Pro-Russian.
That was all manufactured.
That's what I mean. Exactly. That's what I mean. It seems like all these revolutions are manufactured from the outside via these NGOs, of course.
Yes.
And you don't see an organic, spontaneous revolution. And that's why, I don't know, in this country, I keep going back to it, Mike. I know you disagree with me. I still think we're still in the midst of the perfect dictatorship in this country. I don't think the people are prepared to go out in the streets. It was mentioned yesterday, one of the callers was talking about Gandhi and having a strike, a nationwide strike. It would never happen in this country. I don't think we've gotten to that point yet. The people aren't prepared. Maybe it's because of all these immigrants that have come into the country and they've diluted the native character of the country. It's just I don't see it happening. I still think we have that perfect dictatorship.
No,
and I don't know how long it's gonna last.
We do not have a perfect dictatorship. Because in the perfect dictatorship, the people living in it don't realize it's a dictatorship. They have that illusion of choice. They have the illusion of elections. In our case, the American people are waking up and realizing the elections are a fraud. And we are, in fact, living in a dictatorship. And that's usually the beginning of the end. We have a coffee mug we like to sell that says the fastest way to bring down a dictatorship is to force it to act like one where everybody can see it. And whether that's openly rigging the elections, slapping down all those protesters on the Dakota pipeline, mandating vaccines and everything, more and more the American people are looking at the government and realizing we are in a dictatorship. They're waking up to what's really been going on.
But there's this litany, this laundry list of violations that I hear from you every day, and I see online on the internet, and yet nothing's ever done. No one's ever held accountable.
Well, you can only push a population so far. And I think Romania would be a really good example of how fast these things can change. 2 weeks before it all fell apart, if you'd gone into Romania, it would have looked like everything was fine. Yes, there were TV cameras on all the street corners, which back when it happened, that was a strange thing to Americans. Today, we all have these TV cameras, especially Great Britain.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, there was a sporting event, and it just bloomed into a spontaneous political rally. And 2 weeks later, Ceausescu was machine-gunned to death on Romanian national TV. It can happen that fast. Look how the collapse of the Soviet Union caught most Western observers completely by surprise.
Yeah. Oh, last thing, Mike. I think with the neocons in this country, the iron grip they have over the government and the media, I think the people of Europe really have to step up. I think they're the people of Europe are, I think, the only ones standing between this war between the U.S. and Russia. Because like Paul Craig Roberts says, if the U.S. does not have the cover of NATO, they're not going to go unilaterally on their own and start these aggressive wars. So I would hope the people of Europe would finally rise up against the cravenness of their politicians over there.
It's happening. We're starting to see it happen. There's been this huge pushback against the predations of the European Central Bank. There's a harder pushback against this open borders, refugees policy. The people of Europe are very, very angry, and they realize this talk of war between the United States and Russia isn't just abstraction and politics and media anymore. No. It could really happen. And like the first two world wars, it's going to be fought on their front lawns, and they are very much not on board with that idea.
And if nuclear weapons are employed, you're talking about tactical nukes, battlefield nukes that are going to be going off in Europe, not in the U.S. So these Europeans have to wake up.
I'm sure they already are, and we're seeing all these anti-war movements taking off, and we're actually starting to see some of the member nations in the European Union coming on back and saying, absolutely, we're not on board with this. We're thinking about getting out of NATO. This plan by the United States to re-enslave the world to the U.S. dollar, it's not going very well. It was all supposed to be over and done with the conquest of Iran in 2008, and here we are in 2016. Iran is still an independent nation. Can't get traction in Syria, can't get out of Afghanistan, can't get out of Iraq, can't get out of Libya, can't get out of Yemen. This is a real flustercluck going on over there, but nobody has the courage to stand up and say, we may be in serious trouble here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch to Alan in South Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yesterday, over here in South Carolina, they ran a Hillary ad showing our man saying, "I love war."
Really? That's pretty much in your face.
It's, well, obviously, and most probably just more desperate, fabricated bull droppings. But I wonder if you'd seen it anywhere else.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Your attention and comment would be greatly appreciated.
No, I haven't seen it, but you need to understand most political ads are targeted to specific communities, because what plays to military communities isn't what plays to perhaps an artist's enclave. We know that Hillary has been saying one thing to the environmentalists about coal and something completely different in coal mining countries. So these ads are engineered to play to a certain audience in a certain region. And I would expect that this commercial where somebody says, "I love war," is in a community that's heavily invested in the military-industrial complex. I'm going to take a wild guess and say anywhere in Colorado or Nevada would be a good place for this kind of an ad, but I haven't seen it here in Hawaii, even though we do have the highest per capita density of military personnel and bases of any state in the country.
But, another little technical question then. I'm assuming they do have every technical capability to voice track or copy and dub in and manufacture such a thing. especially since Trump speaks rather in a closed mouth fashion where his lips don't really move all that much. But, you know,
Okay.
of course, you know, in South Carolina, we'll blindly vote for military support, and they vote, you know, we went for John McCain when I was telling everybody, please don't vote for that guy, he's against us.
Yeah.
But, well, thanks a lot, Michael. I just wanted to pass that on because to sit on it seemed intolerable.
Well, I mean, it really is that simple. Hillary Clinton will get us into a hot world war. Donald Trump wants to avoid it. Given that I have a nuclear target right out this window here, I'm sort of leaning toward the Donald Trump vision of the future. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Jim in Chicago. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Michael, could you please make a comment regarding how this country is now screwing individuals that joined the National Guard and received a bonus now? They have to pay back the bonuses?
Well, you need to read the fine print on these articles here. It sounds shocking when you think about it, but apparently what is being repaid are accidental overpayments, where some of these National Guardsmen were given the enlistment bonus twice, and I think it's perfectly reasonable for the government to say, we made a mistake, we overpaid you, we need the money back, we're definitely broke. So
that's what it is?
That's what it is.
Okay, on a lighter note, do you remember Clutch Cargo?
Oh, yeah, I remember it. Yes, I love that.
You know, you being in the arts and the videos, how did they move their lips?
Oh, that was very, very simple. They actually took a real film of somebody talking, and then they matted it into the cell animation. It was a very, very popular technique, and it wasn't just with Clutch Cargo. There were about half a dozen shows that did that for a while.
Oh, okay. I was always curious about that. Well, Michael, that's it. You take care.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Phyllis in Missouri. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, I've been looking on the YouTube for more Hillarys, and she has done a lot of things that makes me think that she's kind of a android-type, clonish type person, and really they're not even counting her in the vote anymore. Some people have already aced her out. I don't really think that there's ever been a real Hillary. I think there's been a lot of good copies.
Well, I think what's going on with Hillary is she's lived her entire life as a facade. And even Hillary may not know where the real Hillary still is in all of that layer upon layer of fraud and deception. It's something that can actually happen to professional actors who get caught up in a role character, and all of a sudden that starts to take over their personality, and they become that character for the rest of their lives.
Well, I just don't happen to think she's alive, you know, because of the blinking of the eyes. She blinks, you know, very, very fast. They blink very, very fast. They have to have lights. She has to have lights. There's just too much roboticness.
Okay. Now,
anyway.
Now you're talking about the Parkinson's disease. Or you're talking about the double that they put out there on 9/11.
I don't know. I guess the 9/11 double, but I think she was in the debates too.
No, they couldn't get away with that. They couldn't get away with that. That would not be something that they could get away with. What they do in the debates is they prop Hillary up. They have her on the very best of drugs that modern medical science can provide. We know that she had a teleprompter built into the top of her podium in at least 2 of the 3 debates. And again, she had the moderators from the corporate media were on her side, feeding her questions that she knew she was going to be asked and had memorized the answers to. So in some cases, she didn't even do that. On this last debate, Chris Wallace asked her about the pay for play with the Clinton Foundation, and she launched into this speech about what a wonderful institution the Clinton Foundation is and all the wonderful things it's done, and she never actually answered his question, but Chris Wallace let her skate on that.
Yes, I know. That's another reason why I don't think she's quite there, you know.
That may be the Parkinson's. Okay?
Well, anyway, I just thought I'd let you know that I'm not the only one, because I wouldn't be getting all of this feed out on YouTube if other people didn't think that maybe she's not here at all.
She may not be in a mental sense. I mean, if she is in the advanced stages of Parkinson's, then the personality of Hillary as it was, shall we say, 10, 15, 20 years ago, is already dissolving. I don't know if you've ever been through the experience of seeing somebody that you care about go through a long mental degenerative disease where bit by bit that the person starts to vanish and they start repeating themselves, and instead of seeing a real person, you just see recycling behaviors and things from the past just looping endlessly. Anyway, Phyllis, we're going to let you go here, and we're going to switch over to Tim in Wyoming. Aloha, Tim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Mike. I appreciate it. It was a good show today. Now, one of your last callers mentioned something about how there was a oh my God, I forgot the subject I was calling about. Oh. Well, actually, I want to mention about I'll talk about the Hillary double, if at all possible. I've actually been looking at drug report just recently, and there's supposedly a gash on the side of her face. I'm not sure if that's maybe not even her face or maybe a problem with the camera or something like that. Has anybody mentioned anything about that?
Not really, and it seems kind of trivial. I know a lot of people are sort of joking about the reason she never felt that fly walking on her face on the second debate is she couldn't feel it through all the Botox.
Right. Now, I wonder I've heard this mentioned before that she may get full body blood transfusions.
This is kind of nonsensical stuff. It almost doesn't matter, okay? Whatever she's doing to stay propped up, that's what she's doing. My concern continues to be the election fraud and the quality and condition of her brain, because we're talking about handing the keys to the nuclear weapons to an individual whose brain is going to start hallucinating. We know how paranoid she is about Russia. She's already out there saying she's going to start wars. This is a very dangerous situation, and all this other stuff about doubles and blood transfusion, it's really a side issue, and it's not worth wasting time on, okay?
You're right. Now I remember the subject I called in about, now that one of the callers mentioned something.
Well,
about
I'm going to have to let you go. Tim, I'm going to have to let you go. We've got to take a break for commercials. Got more callers waiting on the line. We will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're actually starting to get numbers from the early voting in Florida. And apparently Trump is doing very well down there. And maybe the first Republican ever to win the early vote in Florida. Now, some of the numbers are still coming in here, but it's looking interesting out there. All right, let's see. Back to the phones here. James in Northern California. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Thanks for your efforts. I've called in before. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but an agency called the National Association of Secretaries of State has proclaimed that the Smartmatic electronic voting machine has not been officially authorized for use.
I know, and I was about to come on to that because George Soros and his company have put these into 16 states, and they're not actually approved and certified for use in our elections.
Well, that's like a little kind of a problem for them, huh?
No, not for them. It's a problem for us, of course.
But you know what I mean.
Well, it should be a problem. But again, as I said before, they're betting the farm that they're going to win this thing, and there will be no prosecutions for any of the illegal things that were done to seize power. It's like after Hitler grabbed, the chancellorship and became the Fuhrer. Do you think anybody actually filed charges against him for all the things he did with the brown shirts? No, he just went out and killed the brown shirts to get rid of the witnesses. How very Clinton-esque of him.
Well, I think that we might be witnessing history's biggest litmus test right now. And they're asking a question, and I think they're going to get an answer here real soon.
Well,
and I don't think it's going to be the answer.
I'm hearing that from so many places. Analysts are saying that If this is taken away from Trump and given to Hillary through any chicanery, now we're hearing that apparently George Soros is literally trying to buy the Electoral College to throw this thing to Hillary, even if Trump wins the popular vote. And everybody's saying it'll be time for the torches and the pitchforks. And if you have money to invest, it may be a good time to start investing in companies that make rope and pitchforks and torches and axes and all the rest of that stuff, because there's going to be a golden opportunity there. I don't want to see that, but I can't think of a way to stop it, because the people who are trying to steal power don't care if they start a bloody revolution in the process.
Well, on some days I would just like to say this. I find myself residing in fear. But a little part of me, watching this agenda unfold in these recent years here, a little part of me just wants to cut to the chase. You know, if you're going to lodge economic, psychological, chemical, biological warfare against me, you know, don't placate me and talk to me like Mr. Rogers. It pisses me off.
Well, me too.
So
it does, and I think Americans are sick and tired of being treated like morons with all this nonsense about Saddam's nuclear weapons and Assad's sarin gas and the rest of it.
Right.
James, stay on the line. I'm going to come back to you after station identification. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And before we go back to the phones here, I'm getting a lot of emails. Apparently, this Hillary Clinton ad that says, I love war. It's a montage of scenes of war and nuclear bombs, and then they have a clip of Donald Trump saying, you know, I like war, and I'm really good at it. But they're taking his statements out of context, because Trump's statements were made with reference to ISIS. But what Hillary's trying to do is recreate one of the most famous political ads of all time. It was called the Daisy ad. And it was back when Lyndon Johnson was running against Barry Goldwater. Remember, Hillary was a Goldwater girl. And the Daisy ad came on out basically implying that Goldwater, as president, would lead the nation into a nuclear war. And it's rather absurd, because the message of this Hillary commercial is, don't let Donald Trump start a nuclear war. That's Hillary's job. All right, let's see. We're going to go back to, I think we were talking with James in Northern California, and we were talking about e-voting, voting fraud, and all the rest of that.
Yeah, I'll make time for somebody else. You know, I'd just like to say this. We have, in the past, somehow felt unique as Americans, as there was a time when we rightly should have, but we thought we enjoyed some kind of insulation and that we were special, and the kind of tyranny that happened in other places wouldn't happen here.
Well, that was a racist idea right from the start.
That was then, and yeah, you might be right. But this is Oppression 101. Right out of the book. There's nothing new. The only part that's new is the technocratic component of it.
Yes.
You know, one of the most powerful people I've ever heard speak were people that have been through horrible tyranny in other times and in other places. And they just want to grab us by our ears and shake us and tell us that, you know, the features of this road only end up in one place. So, you know, the bully that beat us up and took the kids' lunch money in junior high, if you did nothing, it wasn't like one day he decided to stop, right? So we could get hungry doing nothing.
Yeah, well, I think we're past the point where we continue to do nothing and hope for the best. Something has to change in this country, or we're going to be in a hot world war, and we are going to lose this one. And that's just where we are. And everybody needs to face up to that right now. We are in a fascist economic dictatorship. The elections are being rigged. But again, drawing our inspiration from the Brexit vote, if there is a huge landslide for Donald Trump, they can't reverse that without triggering an armed uprising, where we're saying, no, if we don't choose our own leaders, you do not have our consent to govern. Period. End of discussion. Zero tolerance policy.
That's right. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mike in Brazil. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Hello, Mike, are you there? All right, we're going to switch over to...
my fault. Sorry, I missed the lines.
I'm sorry, what?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mike in Brazil. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Okay, in regards to war with Russia, I don't know if these people will realize that once a war with Russia breaks out, they will actually have to deal with a two-pronged war, one with Russia and one at home. Because if these bozos think that they will just walk into people's homes and confiscate their weapons, in which they have invested thousands of dollars, knowing the price of military-style rifles today is like anywhere from $4,000 to $12,000, depending on the make. And if they think that they can just walk out and walk into somebody's home and demand their weapons without any reaction, they are demented, okay? Because I know people love their guns. It's an American pastime. It's a tradition. And people will just not give them up, no matter what. And they will go to war over this. I'm sure of this.
They could, which is why I don't know that that's going to happen. But you're right. It will be a two-front war. It'll be the overt war against Russia and or China, and more of a symbolic war trying to get the American people to go along with this. Remember what I keep telling you about The Art of War by Sun Tzu? If you are a ruler and you are starting a war and your army doesn't believe in the moral rightness and your civilian population doesn't believe in the moral rightness, you are doomed. Now, we know that the U.S. government is making the same strategic mistake the Nazis did. They're basically putting too much emphasis on high-tech wonder weapons and drones and all this other stuff. But you can't control the ground from the air. That was the lesson out of Vietnam. You can't control the ground with drone strikes. And so they're heading into a disaster. And I think a big part of the problem is our civilian leadership themselves have never been in war. Their children have never been in war. I know they've got military advisors there at the Pentagon. I don't think they're listening to them because they're not making choices in terms of positioning assets and getting ready for war that I would see as consistent with somebody actually planning on winning. We're going to take a second here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining the network. We're talking about politics. We're talking about the campaigns. We're talking about the very real possibility of a world war that will go nuclear if Hillary Clinton is able to steal the White House.
Mike, are you familiar with the Mutual Defense Pact that was started by one guy, Rick Stanley, in Colorado? And apparently he got arrested a few years ago. I believe he spent two years in Adams County Jail because he made a mistake of issuing a Mutual Defense Pact arrest warrant against a judge. And the judge threw him in jail. He got a sentence of 2 years. He's out now. This is some old news, okay? So that Mutual Defense Pact still exists, okay? They went underground, basically. They went underground. I have a few contacts with some of them, and they are ready to spring into action. If something goes wrong with this election, they are willing to spring into action. And these people are determined. It's either life or death. They cannot accept a life under somebody like Hillary Clinton or someone like Barack Obama anymore.
Well, from what I'm hearing, they're going to have a lot of company. There's a huge amount of discontent among the military rank and file. Most of those people are already done tours of duty. They don't want to go back into any more wars on foreign soil. The treatment by our government of our surviving veterans has been disgraceful. And those veterans are angry. Their families are angry. And this latest attempt to declare all military veterans mentally ill in order to refuse them to allow to own guns, it was just a slap in the face of all these people.
You heard about that story. You heard about that story in Venezuela. Apparently, corpses in the morgue exploding.
Yeah. Oh man, that was.
They forgot to mention what happens to our own vets exploding in the morgues.
And you know what was really a crime about that one? They did have the money to give these, veterans who died a proper burial. I mean, just dig a hole, put them in, give them a marker, have something, a cenotaph for the family to come on out and take a look at, and they couldn't even be bothered doing that. They were treating these veterans of these wars like they're basically garbage. Put them in a bag, stack them up until it becomes a mess, and then take them to a landfill. Remember, there was a big scandal a few years ago where body parts from our wounded veterans were just being sent to a landfill. I mean, that's how callous it is. From the point of view of the U.S. government, all of us ordinary people, whether we're civilians or military, we're just livestock. They treat us just like livestock. There's almost no difference between the way our veterans are being treated by the VA and the cattle over at the abattoir.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. I agree 100% with you. And one last thing I want to touch on. We all know that Clinton Foundation is actually a racketeer-influenced and corrupt organization.
Yes.
Why aren't they sued or at least indicted on the RICO? Because there is, without question, it's a racketeer-influenced and corrupt organization.
Well, you know, Larry Klayman, who was founded Judicial Watch, he's not with them anymore, he's down in Florida, he actually filed a RICO lawsuit against the Clinton Foundation, and he had an ironclad case involving the pay-for-play, but unfortunately, the court assigned the case to a judge appointed by President Bill Clinton, who threw the case out of court without even looking at the merits. I mean, when you're dealing with a corrupted system, the first priority of all corrupt systems is to protect itself, and laws, you know, who cares? We don't care about laws or people anymore. We're just going to protect our wealth and power and privilege. That's what oligarchs are.
Let me ask you something. Is there any possibility, as remote as that might be, that Larry Klayman could refile the lawsuit in a different venue?
There are several jurisdictions where he could refile it. I've heard that he's planning on doing that, but I think at this point he's marking time to see who wins the election next month, because that will change what he's going to do. If Trump overcomes the election fraud and Trey Gowdy becomes our new Attorney General, I'm sure that Larry Klayman is going to pursue this matter at the federal level.
A lot of people will go to jail, Mike, if Trump becomes president.
Well, actually, they're going to be leaving the country. And you remember all those people that said, I'm going to leave, I'm going to move if Donald Trump becomes president. And somebody started this rumor that Obama was going to leave the United States if Donald Trump wins.
Good for him.
And everybody
He'll run for his life.
Everybody was sort of laughing, but they couldn't actually get a White House spokesperson to dismiss this rumor. Because if you look at the criminality of these people under a Trump presidency and Trey Gowdy as Attorney General, if Trump wins that election, we're going to see a stampede of corrupt politicians heading for the borders for any countries where they don't have extradition. And if anybody from the White House is listening to this, Claire and I are perfectly willing to house sit Obama's place over there on the other side of the island. We're really good tenants. We can give you written references. We'll take care of the property for you real, you know, keep it clean and well repaired. So, but yeah, we're going to see a lot of people leave. There's going to be a bug out of this entire narcocracy. The Bush family's already bought a huge chunk of land in South America, almost big enough to be their own country. That's where they're going to go.
I know exactly what it is because I lived in Argentina. I know exactly what that is. So anyway, Mike, thanks for taking my call. I know you have a lot of people waiting online. Okay, thanks a lot for taking my call.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to switch to Dustin in New Jersey. Thank you for waiting. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Hanging in there.
Mike, hey, a couple previous callers ago, he mentioned why is the West and the Ukraine not rising up because it's worse now. It's because of the right sector and Svoboda Party. Those are the brown shirts over there. And if you get out of line, they'll kill you, beat you down or kill you. Kind of like with we got our own brown shirts. Black Lives Matter is the hard power, and the soft power is the social justice warriors here now, Mike. I mean,
behind that, there are the assassins. You know, the extrajudicial executions, the assassinations. That it's a government that rules the population by terror. That's what Poroshenko's doing in Ukraine, and we are rapidly evolving to that here in the United States of America. People going around saying, why isn't the government arresting these high-ranking criminals? Well, they don't want to wind up dead in Fort Marcy Park. They don't want to have their small aircraft fall out of the sky. So there was a cartoon running around about James Comey where he's saying Hillary's guilty as heck, but I don't want to die suddenly and mysteriously.
Yeah, where were all these Black Lives Matter years and years ago. You know, they all were disappeared in the woodwork. You know, now they're all coming back out because they're needed for a purpose. You know, and then but that's what's the scary part. You know, if you disagree with one of these people, you know, you get a brick to the head, or you get your car spray painted, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they're doing.
With my car, that would be an improvement.
Hey, Mike, on Russia, I don't know if you check anything out on the new Sarmat missile. They had a picture and some documentation.
The Satan II.
Yeah.
40 megaton warheads on that. One of those rockets can take out the entire country of France. I think the reason Russia is releasing this information is they're sending a not very subtle message. Please do not start something that you don't want to have finished by us.
It has 10 lighter yield warheads. 10 heavier yield warheads.
Yes.
And 16 lighter yield warheads. That's a lot of warheads. That thing weighs 100,000 tons or 100 tons or something like that. It's crazy.
I was going to say 100,000 tons. I don't think it's going to get off the ground. I mean, the whole idea of a rocket is... Yeah.
But that's not going to be ready. They said 2018, but I guarantee it's probably already ready because they're not going to tell you it's not going to be ready.
I think the reason they're announcing it is they're basically saying, we understand if you start a hot war with us, it's probably going to tick along for a year or two as a conventional war, and by the time you're ready to start using your nukes, we're going to have this new generation. And it's not like this missile is the only thing the Russians have. They have their equivalent of the boomers, and I know the Typhoon class has all been retired, but they've come up with a new generation of very ultra-quiet submarines that are almost impossible to detect. That's the new undersea version of stealth, is everybody's pushing along with that. And
the Boré class, they got the Boré class with the Bulava.
Yes.
Missile.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this country's our government's crazy, Mike.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. But from their point of view, they've got bunkers. They've reactivated the Greenbrier. They've reactivated Cheyenne Mountain. They've got Mount Weather. They've got the bunkers under the White House. If they make a mistake, they go on down and just stay there for about 6 months or a year and come on up, and we're all dead, and they have the earth, beautiful and natural, all for themselves.
I just want to let your listeners know real quick that if they don't know this, that they keep the pressure higher in those bunkers. That keeps the radiation out of the bunkers. That's how that works.
And the biological contamination as well. In Houston, at the Lunar Receiving Lab, they ran it in the absolute reverse. The pressure inside the Lunar Receiving Lab was lower, so nothing from the moon rocks could get on out. NEBSL-4, same thing. The pressure inside is low, lower than the outside atmosphere, so nothing can get out.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Sorry about all the coughing and hacking here. All right, Sean in Washington State. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going? So I got numerous questions, but I'll keep it short. I mean, first of all, what do you think about, I want to ask some advice too, but so what do you think about climate change?
Well, I mean, climate change is something that's happened throughout all of Earth's history. The climate is always changing. There's never been a time when it isn't changing. It was changing long before we got here. It'll go on changing long after we're gone. But the dominant form of the dominant effect of climate change is solar output and the shape of the Earth's orbit. And by the way, over in Vermont, normally, up until recently, we would have this wonderful week where the autumn trees would turn, all the colors, and it's very, very short, and the tourists flock on in there. It's like standing in a giant bowl of Trix cereal. And then you would have another month or so, and then the snow would show up. Well, the snow has shown up at the same time the trees are starting to turn. It's another indicator that the Old Farmer's Almanac is correct, and Al Gore and his people are full of nonsense, that we are going to have an early and hard winter.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, so I'm a full-time, college student and full-time work, and a lot of my classes are they're like, okay, climate change, we have to do all this stuff, like, you know about the carbon tax, people are trying to vote that in. And,
it's just a cash grab. It's a cash grab. Well, I'm going to share something with you. Don't take it into class or they'll flunk you. I mean, that's how tyrannical universities have become. But until they can change the shape of the Earth's orbit and put a dimmer switch on the sun, there isn't a thing they can do to stop the climate from changing. This carbon tax nonsense, it's just a grab for more of your money by a desperately broke and hopelessly in debt government.
Of course. But their huge thing is like, yeah, it's all of our cars, it's all of our carbon monoxide and all that causing all this.
Well, the reality is the human contribution of carbon dioxide is actually very, very small. Most CO2 is coming from animal life, from the ocean. They just made this up out of thin air to take money from us. Got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. Thank you very much for the phone call. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And before we go back to the phones, a couple of things I want to mention. Apparently in his speech today at one of his rallies, Donald Trump has said he will boost NASA, and I'm perfectly in agreement with that, not because I think we should be planting our flags all over the solar system, but because we need a civilian technology incubator to rebuild our industrial base. And if Trump wins, I want head of NASA, and if I get head of NASA, I'm going to order all the ground crew to dress up like apes anytime an astronaut comes back to Earth. On a more serious note, InfoWars was over talking with the Texas Director of Elections over these reports coming in from all over the state about people hitting the touch screens for straight Republican ticket or for Donald Trump, and the vote for Hillary Clinton lights up, and they're out there saying, there's nothing wrong with the machines. There's nothing wrong with the machines. It's all your fault. And apparently it reached a point where the Texas Director of Elections literally ran up the stairs away from the press conference. They know it's all, the jig is up. We know they're rigging the election. All right, back to the phones. Andy in Texas, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, how are you, sir?
You're doing fine.
Well, hey, first I want to thank you for giving me your cold yesterday when I called in via osmosis.
Okay. I think the pharmaceutical industry just dropped little beakers all over the country to stimulate more sales of medicine and vaccines and stuff.
Well, I haven't had a cold in over 5 years, so this is really odd to me. But what I really called about was I think the people that haven't read the Declaration of Independence need to go back and read the Declaration of Independence, and those of us who have read it need to go back and read it again.
Mm-hmm.
The tyranny in which those people were living under is far surpassed in today's world. I mean, just
no question about it.
And they say that you live under as much tyranny as you're willing to accept. So, I mean, we're in a really big problem here. But here's another thing. I think it doesn't matter if Clinton gets in there or Trump gets in there. The Trump guys already know that it's being stolen from them. And the Hillary guys, if Trump actually does get in there, we're going to have Black Lives Matter creating all kinds of problems. They got $500 million from Soros and $100 million from the Ford Foundation. They're going to start spending that money because they really haven't spent a whole lot of money thus far. So I think either way you look at it, it's about time for a revolution. And on another note, Hold it. Before you go any further, I have a response to that. Okay? If Hillary steals the White House and the Black Lives Matter people are out there, the government's attitude is going to be, well, they're expressing violence on behalf of democracy and you should leave them alone. If Donald Trump is the president, his attitude is going to be, all right, they want to behave this way, sick them. And they'll send the police and the National Guard and armed volunteer militias to just slap these people down and say, you behave like civilized human beings or you're not going to be welcome in this country anymore. Well, and that's the next thing I was getting to is I've been reading on the internet and stuff. All these militia groups are they're activating. They're getting into it's time to roll mode, and I don't blame them. I mean, enough's enough. We've had enough. I was a military man for 8 years, and I thought I was doing something right for my country, and it turns out I wasn't doing anything right for my country. I was working for the bankers, so it's just past pathetic joke, and I really appreciate your show, sir.
Okay, did you ever read a booklet called War is a Racket by Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler?
No, but I did listen to, I read some inserts and heard some audio of somebody reading inserts of his big speech to him. He said, war is a racket. Never again will I fight another war because all wars are banker wars. We're fighting for corporate America. We're not fighting for the freedom of the people, in a paraphrased way. Yeah, no, I'm quite aware of Smedley Butler.
Yeah, and, you know, it's rather amazing because when I was going through the public school system, I never heard his name. I never heard about how the bankers tried to stage a coup against Franklin Delano Roosevelt. All we ever heard was, war is great. We fight wars for good reasons. And the other countries, they fight wars for bad reasons. And that's why you're all going to grow up and join the military and the rest of it. All right, well, listen, Andy, we're going to let you go here. And we're going to take a commercial break here. We've got more callers waiting on the line. And we'll be right back to talk to these people after these words from our sponsors. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go to John in Barbados. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Yes. I'm looking at this situation we've got and the course that America and London, you know, Washington, London, and other European capitals are on. And it almost makes the American election irrelevant because we are heading for a war and a major world war. And it doesn't really matter who gets elected in America. It looks like we're going to be stuck with this war.
Yeah, unfortunately, if Donald Trump wins the election in 2 weeks, I expect that our current regime will start the war before the end of the year and stick him with it.
Yes, exactly. But if Americans, and I'm glad you raise it because you've got to raise the American consciousness to this real danger that we face. If America thinks that they're going to escape unharmed, I hate to tell you, but there's going to be mushroom clouds like a forest over the North American continent. You know, this is not going to end well. And as far as the elites, you know, staying in their bunkers, I mean, I'm on this little island and well away from the danger zone.
Well, I'm on a little island that's right in the middle of the danger zone here. And by the way, let's remember something. When you reach the point of using nuclear weapons in a world war, those aren't the only things you have to be worried about, because once you're using nuclear weapons, then you have tacit basically saying it's okay to use the biological and chemical weapons. And the United States has got this huge arsenal of these very potent biological weapons. They were supposed to have been destroyed as part of a treaty obligation, but just somehow or other the United States never really got around to doing it.
Well, the other problem is, of course, when the Northern Hemisphere has been destroyed and these elites come out of their bunkers, as long as I'm alive, all they are to me is fresh meat on the hoof, uncontaminated. And they'll go very well on my barbecue.
Well, they taste like chicken, and they're non-GMO. And they're not radioactive like all the seafood coming out of the Pacific. There's only one thing to keep in mind. If we get into a war that goes nuclear and biological, this idea Northern Hemisphere is gone and Southern Hemisphere is still great, that's simply not going to work. And again, the movie On the Beach, which is about a post-nuclear war fate for mankind, it is on the schedule. It's coming up on the cable. You might want to search it and record it on your DVR because it was a very potent book and movie at the height of a time when the American people were very dubious about this nuclear arms race with the Soviet Union. And the U.S. government was trying to counter it with propaganda like Bert the Turtle and Duck and Cover. You trust us, you can survive a nuclear war. It's okay for us to make these bombs that can melt an entire city all at one time. But the issue is because of weather patterns, this stuff will blow all over the planet. And
well, in fact, Michael, in the past few weeks I've been investigating, and for the first time that it's been noted, the actual jet streams are merging. The southern and northern jet streams have crossovers. They actually cross the equator. And this will certainly spread the effects of biological, chemical, and nuclear warfare between both hemispheres. So,
yeah, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. I mean, if you had the appropriate equipment in your little home laboratory, you could take samples of the air and water, and you will still find to this very day identifiable isotopes from Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and all of these nuclear tests that were done in the South Pacific, Operation Crossroads, and all of that. The stuff is still out there. And yes, it's decaying away and fading, but it still can be detected. And when you're talking about these major bombs that are so much larger than Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you're talking about 40 megaton warheads, especially those that are designed to kill with radiation, like the neutron enhancement bomb. This is major, major stuff. And I don't think a nuclear world war is going to exterminate the entire human race, but it will send us back pretty darn close to the Stone Age.
Well, the other thing that I want to mention is actually, the chemical warfare. What we've found now is, if you've got the right equipment and sampling equipment of the air, glyphosate, Roundup,
glyphosate
is right round the world.
Yes, it is.
Because we're spraying it, we're spraying it in the northern hemisphere. It's going everywhere.
It's everywhere. I mean, they spray it on the produce at the supermarket to keep it fresher longer. They spray it on women's feminine products, for goodness sake. And it's a carcinogen. And it's not just that. Now we're finding that in addition to all the lead and toxic metals in our tap water in places like Flint, Aaron Brockovich has gone on out and discovered that there seems to be a new problem with hexavalent chromium that's getting into our drinking water supply. And who knows, this may be deliberate by the bottled water company so that we have to buy their filtered bottled water. But this reckless, out of control, money junkie thinking is toxifying our environment. I'm more afraid of these corporations just dumping whatever they feel like dumping into the environment than I am of any of Putin's nuclear weapons.
Well, it's at least you're raising awareness of the problems. I mean, this serious situation in the Middle East could develop into a full-on war between Russia, China, and America, and the other Western allies.
All it's going to take is one person losing their temper and having access to the buttons, and it's going to be going. Anyway, John, listen, we got a lot of callers waiting on the line very, very patiently, so I'm going to have to let you go here and give everybody else their fair shot at the microphone. And thank you for the call. We're going to switch to Mark in North Carolina. Mark, thank you for waiting so patiently all this time. What's on your mind?
How you doing, Mike? Mike, well, I'm glad you're getting a lot of callers. It means a lot of people listen to you. That's awesome.
Yes.
So, Mike, I just want to say that a couple of things. One is you were mentioning something about the possibility of even if Trump wins and wins the electoral college votes, that they might still deny it to him, the electoral college. I don't think that's one thing I don't think they would dare do. I think they know if they did something like that.
Unfortunately, I think they would dare anything. But I think probably Jesse Ventura's warning is germane here, that if Donald Trump actually wins the election, he'll be assassinated because Mike Pence is going to be much more controllable by the narcocracy. He won't be a threat to them. He'll go along with it. He'll say, sure, go on selling cocaine to our kids as long as I get a piece of that action.
The other thing is, as far as Ukraine goes, I don't think the eastern part of the Ukraine, I don't think they're afraid of, they're worried about the Nazis that run the West. They kicked their butts twice already, and actually it was Putin who put a restraining arm on them. Otherwise, they would have driven them completely out of the east, and if they wanted to, they probably could have rolled right into the whole Ukraine. So I don't think they're really worried about that. I think Putin is actually, with all they make him out to be, the fact of the matter is he's probably one of the more restrained of Russian leaders. If they got this
There's
guy
no question about it. He's shown himself to be a statesman time and time again.
It's on.
Yeah, I mean, he showed himself to be a statesman in Syria. He got past that whole thing about Assad's chemical weapons, got Assad to surrender them for destruction. and hammered home the point that the chemical weapons were never the issue. It was just an excuse for the U.S. to try and remove Assad. Putin, I mean, time and time again has shown he does not want a war. He's prepared for one and will deal with it, but he doesn't want the wars. It is the United States that is trying to start all these wars of conquest everywhere, because without it, they know the United States is finished. The United States has, like Israel, become a parasite nation. They have to feed off of other countries to survive. They are not self-sufficient in the United States, either in manufacturing or agricultural produce. That's why they're out there fighting GMO labeling, so that we will be forced to eat the food that they think they're going to make the most money on.
That's one thing I'll say, too. If Trump does get in, he's going to have to clean house as far as these neocons that have wormed their way already into his campaign, like Woolsey, the former CIA director under Slick Willie, I think he was. You don't need people like that. I don't even know about Gingrich, whether I trust Gingrich. I certainly don't trust the fat man from New Jersey there, Christie. Who actually said he wanted
I
to
would
put an
agree. I would
open
agree on the last two. I would agree on the last two. Woolsey, regardless of his political leanings, he's in possession of a lot of the inside information about what the government's been doing that Donald Trump needs to have. And so I would say that probably Trump would be well suited.
General Flynn?
I'm sorry?
Can he get that from General Flynn, who I really do trust? I think he has spoken out against what we're doing in Syria and stuff like that.
Well, Flynn is more of the new guard, and Woolsey's the old guard. Probably having both around. Trump is going to have to really play catch up in terms of learning the reality of what this government has been doing over the last 30 years versus what he thinks the U.S. government has been doing based on watching TV news shows.
Yeah. All right. I hope you're right. But you definitely agree with me about Christie and Gingrich, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's time for Henry Kissinger to be put out to pasture, and Zbigniew Brzezinski as well. And if anybody from the Trump campaign is listening, hey, you've got my number. You can call. I'm willing to give you all kinds of advice. Thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch to Jeff in Texas. Aloha, Jeff. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Michael? How you doing?
I'm doing okay. What's on your mind today?
I want to disagree with you about the U.S. being a parasite.
Yep.
Because for one, I think you said that you favored anarchy if that would be a choice, and I do too. I agree because
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. Okay. I was making a joke. Listen to me. I was making a joke that having studied the Republican Party and the Democratic Party closely for 20 years, that anarchy was looking attractive. I'm not actually in favor of anarchy. I'm in favor of restoring the constitutional republic with a democratically elected government. And that is what I really favor. Now, there are obviously some things we don't need anymore, like that electoral college. It's just another venue for possible corruption. I think we need absolute ban on private central banking. I think we need to have an absolutely trustworthy, honest, accurate, verifiable election system. And I think in this modern day and age that we should start thinking about direct participatory democracy, where our central government, their day-to-day job is keeping the roads repaired and the bridges up and the trains running and everything. But the big decisions, such as more tax money for Wall Street, more money for Israel, going to war, can and should be put to a direct vote of every single legal American citizen.
Exactly. But you don't believe that, like a lot of people believe that anarchy is just lawlessness and stuff like that. You're not from that perspective, are you?
Well, I think a lot of people view anarchy correctly as a disordered society. And there's going to have to be some kind of a structure, but that structure must be constrained to serve the best interests of the nation and its people. That's what the founding fathers tried to do.
That's what I mean. Like it wouldn't matter if Hillary became president and she tried to start a war, because people already know that it's not for our gain, so they'll just not comply.
Well, all Hillary, hang on, you're being very naive here. All Hillary has to do is launch an attack against somebody and then turn around to the American people and say, they're going to come slaughter us unless you pick up that rifle now. That's all it's going to take.
But not if the people say, not if we slaughter you first and then hand them over to them and say we had nothing to do with that.
You know, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea at all. But
I mean, why not?
Let me put it to you this way, okay? It takes everybody working together in agreement to bring about peace. It takes only one maniac with a bomb or a gun to get a war going, and that is an unfortunate commentary on the human condition.
Because you know who's laughing and all the way to the bank? It's Israel. They're laughing all the way to the bank. Right now, they're over there thinking about sucking out Syria's oil, and, you know, they're just laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh, they're already talking about the next time they go into Gaza, they're not going to leave anybody alive. They're going to just scorch it and take it back over again.
You know, I wonder if it was really them who gave all our, I mean, yeah, it was probably through Hillary Clinton and all the cronies in Congress and everything, but I wonder who was really the middleman, you know, gathering it all up with their tentacles and then, you know what I mean? Because they're just laughing at us.
Well, they view us as inferior. Unfortunately, that racist attitude is part of their religion, that they are God's chosen people and everybody else is the goyim, which is a Hebrew word for cattle. Most people don't understand. When Israel is describing you as the goyim, they're describing you as cattle. And when racism is literally an inherent part of your religion, first of all, it's hard to get people to admit they're being racist. No, I'm just following the tenets of my God, and even harder to get them to stop doing it.
You want to hear a Polish saying?
And,
for it, it's like the Jew screams out in pain as he strikes you. And it's funny.
Yeah, I had heard that one. I'd heard that one. You know,
like,
I'm being oppressed. I'm being oppressed. I'm being oppressed. Yes.
It's sad though. It really is sad because I hope even if she does get elected, and people just be like, no, we're done. Just like they did with Obama and the missiles, the cruise missiles not going into Syria. No, we don't want to.
Well, I think it needs to go further than that. I think it needs to go further than that because after Obama was elected, Americans still went on filling out all the paperwork, putting all the stickers on their cars, paying the bills for a government that was just out of control spending even back then, letting their money be taken to prop up Wall Street, letting their money be taken to prop up Israel, and sending their children off to be killed and crippled in these wars. We need to go further than that. If Hillary steals this election, the entire American people have to stand up and say, that's it, we're done. We're not listening to you anymore. We're not giving you our children's lives. We're not giving you our money. We're not giving you our obedience. We withdraw our consent to be governed from you because we did not choose you as our leaders, as is the contract.
Exactly.
Okay?
I remember that time because I went to the Army in my teens.
Okay, well, Jeff, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off. We've got to take a break for commercials. Thank you very much for the phone call. We'll be back with more phone calls after these few words. And aloha, welcome back to our show here, and we're going to go to Jim in Vancouver. Aloha, Jim, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Michael, a lot as usual. I've never called before. I have a question. How many legal voters are there in the United States? Average, I guess. 150 million? 200?
Well, including the illegals and the dead, probably about 400 million.
Not them.
Okay. Well, we see, that's the problem. We don't know. There is no mechanism.
Well, I guess that even if it were 100 million or 150 million, it would be hard to have enough illegals to really turn things if everybody's motivated to vote. And
well, hang on. Okay. You're assuming everybody's voting just once, but there's no mechanism to guarantee that. One of these Project Veritas videos had the New York City Commissioner for Elections saying they're just busing these people around. They'll get a bus, they'll load them up with all these illegal immigrants, they have all these voter registrations in the name of dead people, and they go from precinct to precinct voting over and over again. They don't have to show an ID. and they can use the same names over and over again. These people can be voting 50, 60 times in a day, and that's really what skews it. Then you add the electronic fraud on top of that, and you need to understand, it's not one source of fraud. It's multiple layers that are going on that lead up to a stolen election. That way, when something gets discovered, like the electronic machines, they can say, oh, well, there's not enough of that going on to change the election. Well, if that's all that was going on, that may be true. We don't know that. But the fraud is going on in a wide variety of areas. And definitely everybody needs to get on out and vote, at the very least, so that your voter registration is not out there to be used for nefarious reasons. But there's no voter ID, there's no mechanism to prevent people from voting multiple times. There's no mechanism that stops people from voting multiple times using multiple identities from the local cemetery.
Yeah, if they succeed in stealing it, everybody just has to come. It's just too much. They've cheated from every way. No ID. I got to have ID to buy cigarettes, and I'm 67 years old.
Yeah, that's exactly right here.
Tell me booze.
I mean, our system is set up to let the elections be stolen. The only Western democracy with a more crooked election system than the United States is Panama. We're second worst in the world. If Trump is able to overcome the election fraud and get into the White House, we have 4 years to literally ram through some major changes in the election system. It is possible to have honest and fair elections. It's very simple to have honest and fair elections. But
if he gets in, the bully pulpit will be used constantly, as they say. But, I got a couple other things.
Hang on. Let me finish. I'll tell you what, hang on. We're going to do the station identification. Then when we come back, I want to talk about that bully puppet, okay, because I've got a response to that. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're talking with Jim in Vancouver, and you talk about the bully pulpit, and I'm absolutely in agreement with you. If Donald Trump is able to overcome the election fraud and get into the White House, our work is only just beginning, because you can have these bullies up there in their pulpits trying to shout down Donald Trump. But you know what a bully is most afraid of is a crowd of people standing up for themselves. And if we have 100 million Americans glaring through the windows at the offices of the senators and the representatives, reminding them that they're supposed to be working for us, we can get them to cooperate with Donald Trump. Now, there is no question, our election system has to be completely reformed from top to bottom. We need to get rid of those electronic voting machines. We need to get rid of tabulation centers. We need to bring back voter ID laws. We need to have little colored ink on the thumb to prevent multiple voting. We have to mandate that you vote near you, where you live, and not drive all over the state or into another state to vote. We can't have an honest election system. I refuse to believe that the nation that put men on the moon can't come up with an honest, fair, and accurate election system. For us to have this mess that we have right now, that lets elections get stolen so openly, it has to be by design.
I agree. And you said before you went to station break, I think you misquoted me. You said bully puppet. That's what we got.
Well, no, it was bully pulpit. And
I heard it wrong then.
Well, no, it could be me. I'm dealing with this cold and everything, and I'm fuzzed out on all the medications and whatnot.
I wanted to ask you a question about some other things that I watch. There's a guy named Michael Trim. Have you heard of him?
No,
doesn't very many on YouTube.
Doesn't ring a bell.
All right, he's putting out some absolutely damning analysis on the fraud business and all. He's a researcher doing WikiLeaks stuff, but it's really good. I'm going to send it to you in email. You can see it for a little bit and see if you're interested. You ever heard of this black guy, Derek Grayson, around from the Ron Paul days?
He's
teaching the black folks all about the Democrats and why we need to vote Trump. And David Seaman, that kid that got fired from Huffington Post for mentioning Hillary's stuff, Hillary's illness, he's been doing some good things. Paul Craig Roberts says that some Washington group up there, or defense group, has studied these things, and that if only 1% of the arsenal of the United States and Russia is used in any kind of a nuclear exchange, there will be a nuclear winter that will ensue where no temperature on Earth will be above 32 degrees for 3 years.
Well, that depends on where the weapons are detonated. If they're upper atmospheric detonations to bring about, or outside the atmosphere to trigger impulses, you're not going to see as much of the nuclear winter issue. Air bursts down to 5,000 feet, not really. But if you do a ground burst, then yes, you're going to see a lot of dust and debris tossed into the air that's going to float around there for a very, very long time.
2 small points. The people I'm listening with and everything say that the real steal, if we can win it, is going to be the Electoral College. And you probably know more about that than anybody I know. So the last thing is, from the Declaration of Independence in the second paragraph about the middle, when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design
to reduce them under absolute
despotism, that's where we're at.
Yes.
This is becoming more and more apparent to everybody.
Yes, they really are. And, again, I would like to get out of this mess without violence, but if violence comes, being an old guy and not really being suitable for combat and everything, I definitely am going to go down to the hardware store and get a very nice sledgehammer and go on over and take out my anger on those electronic voting machines. That's going to be my target. My contribution to the new country.
That's the last resort, but you got to keep it. Anyway. There you go, sir.
All right.
Done.
Thanks an awful lot here. We're going to switch.
Appreciate finding you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Mary in New Jersey. Mary, thank you for being so patient. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. I just wanted to say that I saw something before the weekend on WikiLeaks. I'm not sure if you saw it. That they are aware that her numbers are falling. It said something like 12%, and I saw someplace 11%, and the rest was for Trump, or a big percentage was for Trump. But they're just like kind of making up their own numbers. Were you aware of anything like this?
Well, the polls are all over the place. Generally, the polls being run by the corporate media, which we know are in bed with Hillary's campaign, have Hillary ahead. Polls run by other organizations that are not connected with the corporate media or the Hillary Clinton campaign, such as my own website, show Donald Trump very, very much in the lead. The fact that all these polling results are all over the place tells us most of them are going to be wrong. They're going to turn out to be wrong. If the polling was really accurate, the numbers would be lining up. The fact that they don't, basically advertises there's a lot of fraud going on. And we're going to take a second here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. We're in hour number 3. We're taking phone calls and talking about, various topics, including Hillary's and Donald Trump's numbers. And they are all over the place. But remember, there was that one Podesta email that came on out that said the corporate media was being directed to produce good polling numbers for Hillary Clinton to discourage Trump supporters from even going to the voting booths, to basically sell this message: the election is effectively over, it's already Hillary, don't even bother showing up on Election Day or for early voting, just stay at home and watch whatever it is you watch on TV.
Hello?
Yeah, anything else?
Yes, I did. The main thing I wanted to call about, before you were talking about, weather change and stuff. Well, I've always, I'm a nurse, so I took a lot of biology and stuff, and I got good marks, but I always, since I was a teenager, I graduated high school the same year as Al Gore, so I'm 68. I was 17. And I've always read science magazines, and when that movie first came out, it said that a lot of scientists thought we were heading into a mini ice age. But also, a few years ago, I looked up whether Al Gore even had a degree in biology or anything. So, evidently, and I had more trouble finding it now, but I did. He did graduate in 1965, went to high school. His his marks were dismal, evidently.
Yes,
but
especially
he went
in the
to
sciences.
Vanderbilt. What's that?
Especially in the sciences.
Yes, I know. He went to Vanderbilt first, and it was a seminary school, I think. So he got a C-. He took 8 courses. He got a C- in economics. He got a D in science. I think it was a biology. A C+ in another, and then 5 Fs. So he flunked out of there, and then went to Harvard. And I'll tell you, having a child who was very smart and trying to get, funding, they are more. If you have wealthy parents that can afford to fund the school, they will take you in preference to a smart kid that doesn't have money. Okay?
Yeah, they will. If there's an endowment to a chair, yeah, the university will let the kid in, even if they're a loser. No question about that. We've seen that throughout history, and we've seen the children of the very wealthy literally be hand carried through the university and given a degree to speed them on their way, and they're really not very qualified. Now, in the case of Al Gore, he seized on this idea of global warming. And have you read my ClimateGate article?
I didn't read yours, but I did read an article about how he, some professor, he sat in on his class, and he had this theory about global warming, and he reversed it at the time, but Al Gore happened to be in the front of his class when he was taking that. So what was regarding your article?
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and repost it to the main page of WhatReallyHappened.com so you can read it. It's very, very long and documented. And basically, in a nutshell, as I said to that earlier caller, climate is always changing on Earth. It always has. It always will.
I'm totally aware of that. But anyhow, he did go on to Harvard, and he didn't do that well either. But, it's a lot of places they don't have this. But I did find one place that actually had his marks that he got meager marks, and he only took like a life. But one professor, where he got this idea from, and by the way, Bill Gates, who's also spouting this out, has no idea what he's talking about. And I saw him lecturing about getting the CO2
because they're all financially invested. They're selling products for global warming.
I know.
Okay.
I know. They
now
don't have no idea.
Now, Mary, hang on a second. If you want to know what Al Gore is all about, what you need to remember is that when he set up his carbon trading scam, he was helped with the design by Ken Lay. Ken Lay was the guy who ran Enron during the time it was defrauding its investors, its employees, and what Al Gore and Ken Lay were going to do was cheat planet Earth using carbon dioxide the way Enron had swindled California using electricity. It was set up to be a scam right from the start. There are far more potent greenhouse gases in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. There's water vapor, certainly the worst, but you're not going to get people to pay a cloud fee or a cloud tax. Methane is far more potent a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, but most methane comes from bovine flatulence, deep crust microbes, termites, which are all life forms far too intelligent to listen to Al Gore. So they settled on carbon dioxide because they could say we can blame people for carbon dioxide and guilt them out of their money and obedience, even though the human contribution to atmospheric carbon dioxide is actually microscopic.
I know, and I can't believe that they fooled so many people for so long. And without, at the time that we've had the most life on Earth, there's been more higher levels of carbon dioxide, because without it, everything would be dead.
That's exactly right. The EPA has declared carbon dioxide a pollutant to go along with this agenda, but if there was no CO2, we wouldn't be here. It's an essential component of life.
I'm saying this for the benefit of, like, that previous caller who's taking a college class and other young people, or people who haven't had sciences. It's just absurd. The stuff they're talking about is just absurd. It's just totally ridiculous.
Well,
So
science is politicized. Politicians think they can warp science to suit their agenda. I got to see this up close and personal when I was with NASA, and it's one of the reasons why real scientific training has all but vanished from the American education system. Common Core teaches science basically that you will remember and regurgitate what we told you from the scientists from the past. They're not being taught experimental method. They're not being taught scientific method. They're not being taught to analyze critically and think about what's going on. It's just read and rote repetition. That's not science. That's scholarship. Anyway, Mary, I need to let you go. We're running out of time, and the phone lines are still full. Thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Steve in California. Steve, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
You know, I always love those self-proclaimed experts that have no experience and no knowledge in the subject matter they talk about as being experts like Al Gore. And don't count out, Michael, that they won't add a bovine flatus tax someday.
Oh, they're already talking about it. Obama's already talking about it, that we need to curb the methane from cows. And I understand the name for Obama's program to curb bovine flatulence is called Obamacork.
Well, couldn't we just give gas X to the cows and the sheep? Couldn't we just do that?
I think it's a lot funnier thinking about shoving a cork into the rear end of a cow.
That's not my question. I have a tech question for you on... I have working with Audacity for audio recording on my computer
yes.
with a USB microphone. Is there another program out there that gives you the video portion clarity and the audio at the same time? That one program out there that's maybe even a free download? Is there anything you know of?
Are you live streaming, or you're just trying to put together a video?
Just to record for and then later on share.
I think you can do that.
No live streaming.
Okay, but I think you can do that with, I don't know about free software. Hang on a second. There are tools to do that. Generally, I think Movie Maker will do that. And I would actually have to take a look at that. When I do production here, it's usually where the visuals are created separately. We record the audio, we mix that down in Adobe Audition, then we put it all together in Adobe Premiere for our finished product.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, I'm attending a Eagle Forum meeting tonight, and we have a speaker that's going to be talking about election fraud, voter fraud. So I thought I would record the meeting itself, but I got Audacity. I'm going to try the Audacity and see if that works just for the audio portion. But I thought about the video, if I could do a video and audio together.
Can you do it on your cell phone?
I'm not sure I'd have the memory to do a whole thing.
All right.
Probably not.
Might be time to invest in a camcorder. All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go and switch over to Francis in North Carolina. Aloha, Francis. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, aloha, Michael.
Aloha, Nunui.
Oh boy, this is probably going to tweak some hairs here and there with who, what, when, where, and why. But I'm curious about one thing: is the people's vote, the everyday person on the street, is the people's vote, which is the popular vote? Is that not what the Electoral College is supposed to be based off of, or a separate entity altogether?
Well, the original purpose of the Electoral College goes back to a time in this country where we didn't have telegraphs or telephone or radio, where basically riding around the countryside on a horse is how you got around. And rather than literally carry all the ballots from the outlying states to be counted, the states' popular vote basically elected an elector. The electors would then meet at the Electoral College and vote for the president. It was originally the idea that a state elector represented the voters of their state. Unfortunately, there have been a couple of historic precedents where the Electoral College has said, well, we've decided that the people are wrong and we need to go this way. And there was one very famous case where the Electoral College was literally bribed to throw the presidency a certain way, and there are disquieting rumors that George Soros is already wagging his checkbook at the current members of the Electoral College. which is why in the blueprint for the new America, the Electoral College goes into the shredder.
Well, that I was kind of wondering where you were going to go with that train of thought. So you basically nailed it because of one thing I heard recently. So I was kind of wondering, well, then what's the point of the everyday person's vote being the popular vote or whatever if they're going to do that with the Electoral College being bought and paid for?
Well,
what's the point?
It's not just the Electoral College. I mean, there's the superdelegate system that overrides the popular votes in the primaries. We saw how that was abused by the Democrats this primary season. When Ted Cruz was still erroneously being considered as a challenger for Donald Trump, they were talking about throwing it to a brokered convention in which the delegates would just pick somebody, and to heck with who won the popular vote during the primary season. It is set up to allow these candidates, nominees, and officials to be hijacked away from control of the American people, and that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Give us a whole new meaning to the word shenanigans. Thanks so much, Michael.
All right, you got it. Thanks a lot. We're going to go to Nick in California. Actually, Nick, hang on. We're coming up on a commercial break, so just take a deep breath. I'm going to take your call as soon as we come back from the next commercials. Meanwhile, if you are living in northwest New Jersey, get out the warm clothing. There is a snow and freeze warning there for you tonight. And Al Gore is howling in the distance in rage and frustration that we have another record-setting winter on the way. We're going to take a break for commercials. Back with Nick in California after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And let's see, we're going to go to Nick in California. Nick, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. Yeah, this is my first time calling in, and I love the show. You're one of the most polite radio hosts I've ever heard, and I like that.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, not much point in my screaming at callers, although I have on occasion, if they come on in with things like Bigfoot and, HARP and Elvis and the UFO and the rest of that stuff, but you don't sound like one of those. What can I do for you?
Voting. So I read an article, wanted to see what truth there was to it. I'm in California, and one of the 16 states using the renamed Diebold machines, and they're calling them Smart Tech or something. And they're saying you can request a paper ballot.
Yes,
now,
you can.
Is that true, and would it help?
Yeah, it definitely would, and you can request a paper ballot. The problem is they can bypass that by simply not having a lot of paper ballots. There was an article that was out there saying if you have these Smartmatic voting machines from George Soros in your polling place, ask for a paper ballot because these Smartmatic machines are not actually certified for use in U.S. elections. They're just putting them in there to steal the election, and you can demand and get a paper ballot. Now, remember the shenanigans they pulled down in San Diego, where there were a huge number of absentee ballots that had been sent on in. But based solely on the live vote, they declared Hillary had won it, even though the number of uncounted absentee ballots was larger than all the votes for Hillary Clinton. Now, the way the law is supposed to work is they count the live vote, and if the number of absentee ballots is greater than the difference between the two candidates, the absentee ballots are counted. Obviously, if Hillary is ahead of Bernie Sanders by 5,000 and there's only 1,000 absentee ballots, there's not much point in counting them. There's no way it can be overtaken. What they did in San Diego was they simply said it's Hillary and proceeded to destroy the absentee ballots, even though there was a huge number of them. There was a lawsuit, and the judge admitted clearly there was misbehavior here, but once the state of California certified the election, there was no remedy. In other words, they stole it fair and square.
Yeah, so the judge pulled a Comey on that one.
Yeah. In essence, yes.
Not really. And then I guess the other question I would have is economically, I'm not sure how deep you go into it, but are you looking at possibly a period of deflation? And then the question that goes with that is, how do you feel about metals as a safeguard?
I'm a big champion of metals as a store of wealth. I think everybody should be buying metals right now. Silver, gold, tantalum, lead, and we're basically looking at a period of hyperinflation just to keep the system propped up. When you look at all these banks that have been caught engaging in massive frauds, rigging of prices, LIBOR, creating fake accounts, and all of this stuff. And these are some big names in the industry like Wells Fargo and J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs, and they're all engaging in massive amounts of fraud. And what it tells me is fraud is the only thing holding Wall Street up right now. And what that in turn tells me is the real economy of the nation, the economy that makes the nation work. People have high-paying jobs. People take that money. They buy homes. They buy cars. They go to the shopping mall. They buy TVs and all the rest of that stuff. That economy has already shut down. And they're keeping it propped up with all this instant money created by the Federal Reserve until after the election is over. And then there's going to be a huge crash, which they're going to try and paper over with more hyperinflation. And we're going to wind up like Zimbabwe did, where people were walking around with paper notes in their pockets that said $100 trillion. And they were actually worth about 36 cents. You can still buy them on eBay for a couple of bucks as a conversation piece.
Nice. Well, I'd say an interesting book you might like. I learned about it on Alex Jones, called The Sale of a Lifetime. And it's with regard to everything that you're saying. Very interesting book. Took me about 2 or 3 days to read it. And, this guy does kind of go between, well, we might see the hyperinflation, then followed by deflation. And, his opinion on metals is not the common one that you're hearing right now. He's saying that it might not be the way to go. I buy metals. I'm in it. So I figured you might want to know about that book.
Yeah, definitely. You want to be in metals in small amounts and under your own control. And don't get into those paper contracts. Those things are leveraged hundreds to one, and they're going to be worthless. We got to take a break for commercials. Back with another phone call after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And let's get a couple of phone calls. Then I got some news stories. Kyle in Pennsylvania. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Climate change is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in the world. First of all, you need to realize that the time when life was most diverse, so widespread, the largest animals to ever walk the face of the earth was during the time of the dinosaurs. And that was because carbon was about 150 times what it is on the planet today. More carbon dioxide, more plants. The plant eaters eat more plants, they get bigger, i.e. the carnivores need to get bigger to eat the dinosaurs. Secondly,
well, hang on. Let's take this one step at a time. Carbon dioxide was really high before the dinosaurs during what's called the Carboniferous period, and it was definitely high, generating all this plant life. What allowed the dinosaurs to grow so much larger was the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere was much higher, which allowed their biochemistry to have a much higher metabolism that gave them the physical strength to hold themselves erect. I mean, we all love the Jurassic Park movies. I think they're absolutely wonderful. But the reality is, if you brought back a genuine Cretaceous dinosaur to our current Earth, they would have about as much difficulty getting by as if you were up on the top of Mount Everest without an oxygen bottle. That's the reality there.
Well, from what I understand, even today, if you had 2 alligators, both hatched on the same day, and you raise one in captivity and you raise one in the swamp, the one that's in captivity will be dramatically smaller than the one that's in the wilderness, because the one in the wilderness is forced to survive. Also, there's a dramatically more amount of food and resources out there for it to eat, whereas the one that's in captivity lives a much easier life and is fed on a schedule, so it will remain a much smaller size. So I was always under the impression that, for whatever reason, genetically, reptiles of a certain breed have the ability to grow to fit their environment.
Well, all life forms do, and by the way, the dinosaurs were not reptiles. They're actually closer to the birds. But yes, living space constrained size. There's an island off the coast of Southern California, very near Catalina, and they have discovered the fossil remains of woolly mammoths on this island that are very, very tiny. And what?
So my next point on climate change is.
Hang on, I'm not done. I'm not done. Okay. The theory is that at one point this island was connected to the mainland, along that whole slipping San Andreas Fault, and the mammoths were coming back and forth. And over time, the island started to break away, and finally got so far the mammoths couldn't swim back and forth. So the mammoths that remained on that island, because it was size limited, they shrank in size, and they're called pygmy mammoths. So anyway, continue your next thing.
There was a volcano in 2010 in Iceland, Mount Fuji-Vugivugaleda, and that one volcano, over the course of 10 days, released more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere than all of man-made CO2 has ever produced in the history of man's life.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, on that next island over that-a-way, we have a volcano that's been erupting continuously for almost 20 years. And ironically enough, the laboratory that measures atmospheric carbon dioxide is on the top of that mountain, which always struck me as kind of weird, but that's the facility that Al Gore was always using to say, oh, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is dangerously high. Well, you're sitting on top of a volcano that's putting out carbon dioxide. But the way the carbon Nazis get around that is they divide carbon into the natural carbon dioxide and the carbon dioxide produced by us icky-poo human beings. And they're saying the natural carbon dioxide has a carbon dioxide sink that balances it perfectly, but the carbon dioxide created by the humans, those icky-poo humans, has no natural sink, and that's why it's so destabilizing. And of course, it's complete nonsense. If humans are adding a little more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, plants will eat it up and grow faster, higher, produce more crop, and it's a natural self-balancing system. Commercial greenhouses add carbon dioxide to their interiors to produce more saleable crop. It is complete nonsense, what they're doing with this global warming thing. And it's all scaring you out of your money and obedience, and it's absolute total junk science. Now, if you go back to Al Gore's mockumentary, The Inconvenient Truth, he makes a big deal over these Antarctic ice cores that show temperatures going up and down on a regular period, which it does, and carbon dioxide going up and down with it. And Al Gore says, see, when the carbon dioxide goes up, it made the Earth warmer. Well, if you zoomed in on the data, what you find is that the Earth warms first, and the carbon dioxide levels increase roughly 800 years later. And that makes perfect sense, because when the Earth gets warmer, you have more animal life. More animal life will produce more carbon dioxide. But Al Gore inverted that relationship to sell you this idea that carbon dioxide is warming the world. And if you look at the temperature variations on the graph, they're regular, periodic, regular as clockwork, corresponding to solar energy cycles and the changing shape of the Earth's orbit.
Well, and the most brilliant thing about climate change, the most evilly brilliant thing, is that once we have carbon tax and they start paying, we have to start paying Al Gore money, he doesn't need to do anything to fix the problem. All he needs to do is go in and make your calculations correct in the models and remove this little sensor from the top of a volcano, and all of a sudden, magically, because humanity started paying money to Al Gore,
No, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. The government wants the carbon tax because they're hopelessly broke and in debt. Al Gore made his money with his carbon trading scheme, his brokerages. And he wanted to be the world's first carbon billionaire, and it was a commodity. It was very unusual. It was the only commodity that you promised not to deliver. They ran it all over Europe and made huge amounts of money. Didn't affect the climate there. They ran it here in the U.S., didn't do quite as well, and they've since shut down. But Al Gore ended the 2000 campaign absolute dead broke, and apparently part of his deal of ducking out and letting George Bush become president was the U.S. government would support him on this global warming thing. And he's made himself hundreds of millions of dollars, and he's bought himself a seaside home in Southern California, so much for the claim that the ocean levels are rising. And it's just a scam. It's just another scam. Anyway, I need to let you go. We're almost out of time, and we got callers waiting. So we're going to switch over to Mike in Tennessee. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Greetings, Michael. I just wanted to mention those provisional ballots, those paper ballots are thrown out. I was involved in a campaign. I ran for office in 2006, and not only did they not count them, but when I challenged the election for fraud because I won in a landslide and they just flipped the votes, I was told that basically they've got rules that they go by. Even in a federal election, the local rules trump, and they can literally throw those paper ballots out the window. And yes, I understand the difference between potential likely voters casting votes under provisional conditions, mail-in ballots that could overturn the count, but routinely those people throw them away. And remember one thing, those people that are in positions right now counting the votes are status quo bureaucrats who want to maintain status quo.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. By the way, we're getting word from Florida that higher numbers of Trump supporters are turning in their mail-in ballots. So it looks like Trump is ahead in Florida in terms of the early voting. And I'm sure that the ashtrays are going to be flying around Hillary Clinton's campaign office or bus. Matter of fact, she's got another little bruise on the side of her face, either an ashtray ricocheted or she's had another spill. Mike, thank you very much for the information. We're going to let you go and switch to Will in Cincinnati. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, I wanted to ask you a question, and I think it's really important. A lot of people are voting early, and I wanted to get your opinion. Do you think it would it be better for a true election if more people voted early, or would it be better if it all came down on the last day? What's your take on that?
Well, the Constitution says that the elections are to be held on a specific day where everybody can get together, and obviously if you're voting on just one day, then the mechanisms to preserve the accuracy and fairness of the vote are all concentrated on that day. The problem with absentee and early voting is the watchdogs just aren't there as much. There are more opportunities for ballot box stuffing, and apparently there are already videos out there of Democrats stuffing the ballot boxes. I mean, our election system is a disgrace. We need to stop talking about how do we improve the election system and talk about a complete replacement from top to bottom. And I've already said there's a very good way to have a guaranteed election, and that is you go down to the precinct near where you live and you vote. And at the end of the day, the ballot boxes are opened and counted by hand in front of everybody who wants to be there. Observers from Russia, observers from the candidates, observers from the issues, and all the voters who want to be there. Nobody is ejected. The ballots are counted by hand, and the totals for that precinct are posted where everybody can look at them. Okay? Then your city newspapers take the totals for all those precincts and they publish them in the local newspaper so that everybody can verify their precinct totals were accurately reported, and then they can go on down with their own calculator and verify the totals for the city. Then you do the same thing at the county level, take it up to the state level, and finally the federal level. The idea being that every single voter knows that their precinct numbers were reported accurately and can check the math work for themselves. That's how you guarantee elections. And you have voter ID laws. This idea that requiring an ID to vote is somehow racist or discriminatory, that's ridiculous. You need an ID to drive a car. You need an ID to buy alcohol or tobacco. Why is it all of a sudden discriminatory when it's dealing with the elections, especially when we know illegal immigrants who are not legally supposed to vote are voting in these elections, have voted in the early elections? And we don't need central tabulation centers. We do not need computers. There is no law that says the results of the elections have to be available 1 hour after the polling places close. We could wait till the next morning for everything to be properly counted. We could wait for a week to get an accurate, honest count. It's not impossible to do. The way it's set up now is to make it possible to steal elections and keep everybody so confused they don't see how it's being done.
Well, we got to get the word out, keep pressing everybody wear red on Election Day.
Yes.
And everybody keep holding the media's feet to the fire on Project Veritas until they cover it, until they have to cover it.
Well, you know what's really interesting? As you know, Russia offered to send observers for our elections. They were told, don't show up, we're going to arrest you. Now the Department of Justice actually came out with a statement saying it's illegal to stop voter fraud. That if you see somebody committing election fraud and you try and stop them, you are in violation of the federal voting rights law. I mean, that's how completely bogus this has turned into.
This nuts. A quick side note for you, Mike. The trial for the cop, the Ray Tenzing trial, the Cincinnati state cop that shot the guy in the face, that was all on camera, they're drawing a jury for that right now, and they say normally that the defendants will come to the prosecutor and strike a deal. Well, they're not. It looks like they're playing hardball, and they're going to play for keeps. So it could, if he gets off on that, it could very well trigger some massive racial events right here in Cincinnati. But, yeah, I wanted to let you know, keep your eye on that.
Okay, I definitely will. And Cincinnati's a lovely town. I took Claire to the World Choir Games there back in, I think it was 2013, and we loved it there. We absolutely loved it. All right, before we take this next phone call, I want to make a point. There is actually one very reliable indicator of the elections that has been there all along that most people don't look at because it can't be skewed, it can't be rigged, it can't be bribed. Halloween masks. If you go back and you look at prior elections, going back for decades, where masks of the candidates have been available, the preference for the masks matches almost exactly the final popular vote results. And this year, the Donald Trump masks are outselling the Hillary masks by more than 2-1. Even little girls want the Donald Trump masks. All right, back to the phones. Tom in Texas, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Thanks, guys.
Tom, are you there?
Phone glitch, lost him.
Okay, phone glitch, we lost Tom. Gosh darn those, it's just a glitch. It's not Hillary's people coming on in with the wire cutters and cutting our... Anyway. I am seeing all these very alarming articles, this one over in Natural News, which normally is dealing with health and vaccine, but they're out there saying that we need to seriously look at the fact that even if Donald Trump wins the popular vote, that he'll be cheated with the Electoral College or he'll be assassinated, and there's a very real possibility, in fact they calculate it at 95%, that if Donald Trump is cheated of this election, 95% probability there will be violence in the streets of America. I hope they're wrong. But if it happens, I certainly know whose side I'm going to be on in this issue. More information coming on out from the WikiLeaks. Remember back when the email server scandal first broke? And I remember Obama getting up there on the press conference and saying, I just found out about it at the same time you did from the corporate. I had no idea, blah, 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 blah. Well, there's now absolute proof that not only did President Obama know Hillary Clinton was using a private unsecured server, he himself used it to send messages to Hillary Clinton using a pseudonym. And that makes him culpable. He's an accessory to whatever was done with that private email server. If, in fact, Hillary Clinton was selling U.S. secrets to foreign interests using that server to deliver the goods, then Obama's an accessory. He's an accessory. All right, we're coming up on a commercial break. Tom in Texas is back. When we come back from these words from our sponsors, we're going to take Tom's phone call, and then we will be done with the radio show for today. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And real quick, we had a listener write on in response to the phone call asking about software that was going to record both audio and video together. There's apparently a tool called Reaper. It's available at reaper.fm, and there's a free download with a 60-day demo. The software is apparently much better than Audacity. It's been used at Disney and Abbey Road and will work with video. It's available for Mac and Windows, and the license is only $60. So it sounds like a good piece of software for that particular application. Now then, the Hillary Clinton campaign is reporting from down in Florida that almost twice as many Latinos have cast early ballots this election than 4 years ago in 2012. Almost twice as many. Are these Latinos legal citizens and eligible to vote? I have no idea. We don't require voter ID here anymore. Are all these Latinos actually alive? Well, I don't know. We don't have to go out and take their pulses. As far as I'm concerned, this election is discredited completely already just based on the fraud during the primary. And I can understand why people are getting very, very angry about what's going on here. More reports about voting machines switching votes from Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton. They're not even trying to hide it. They're not even trying to hide what's going on. Apparently, the U.S. is trying to find some way to get back into the southern Philippines. I would say that in all probability, we're going to see an attempt to regime change the Philippines. Duterte won't do what the U.S. tells him to do, such as not shoot the drug dealers, so we're going to just replace him. I'm hearing a very alarming talk that the U.S. Congress, frustrated by 5 years of trying to regime change Syria and getting nowhere, is seriously considering authorizing a decapitation strike, meaning an assassination of a foreign leader. That is a door I don't think they really want to open, because once you set that precedent, once you're across that line, then everybody's going to be shooting at everybody else's leaders. And yes, I know we all have certain leaders we'd like to see get shot, but it just contributes to the overall chaos. Apparently, Obama is unleashing intervention teams to wage war on ideologies that he does not agree with. In other words, he's bringing about George Orwell's thought police. That's literally what he's talking about. If you have a thought that I don't agree with, the thought police will stage an intervention. By the way, over in Iceland, the polls are showing the Pirate Party may actually win control in Iceland. And that will be a really good thing. I just love the name, the Pirate Party. The Pirate Party. It's good stuff here. And by the way, for those of you on Hillary's campaign who are heroin dealers or addicts, you'll be delighted to know that under U.S. military protection, Afghanistan opium production is now up by 43%, according to the United Nations. There's the music. Time for Claire and I to get out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day, like finally shake this cold I've been dealing with. We'll be back tomorrow here on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Until then, you are all part of the independent media. Take what you learn here, share it with all those people still believing that the TV set is the font of truth. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.